Good day, you're welcome to my channel. This is Kevin Davis Accounting. So today I'd like us to look at the elements of the cost structure. Elements of the cost structure. Now, when I look at the elements of the cost structure, we are going to look at how these elements are arranged when you're ascertaining cost. Remember, I told you that when it comes to the elements of the cost structure, we shall have things like material cost, we have labor cost, and then we shall have the expenses. Okay, now I told you that material cost, this is the cost of the physical substances that are being used in the manufacture of goods and services or in the production of goods and services. So simply we can say material cost is the cost of the materials that is being used in the production of goods and services. So that's what we call material cost. Then labor cost, this is the cost of the human effort that is used or that is being involved in the production of goods and services. So the cost of the human effort. Then when it comes to the expenses here, all other expenses or other costs that do not fall under material cost or labor cost will be then grouped under expenses. So that's what we call the elements of the cost structure. So there are three elements, and let me sum it up like this. So we shall have what we call cost here. Okay, then we shall have material cost, we shall have labor cost, and then we shall have the expenses. So the material cost here, they're divided into two. We shall have what they call the direct material cost, and then we shall have the indirect material cost. Okay, the same applies to labor. We shall have direct labor, and then shall have the indirect labor cost. And then when it comes to expenses, we shall still have the same thing. We shall have the direct expenses, and then we shall have the indirect expenses. So this is how it looks like now. Like you can see here, this is our cost, and our cost can be further divided into material cost, labor cost, and the expenses. Then also we can further subdivide these three elements into direct nature and indirect nature. Now, all elements that have a direct nature, they tantamount to what we call prime costs. So the moment you see anything of direct nature, that means when you get direct expenses plus our direct labor plus our direct materials, we shall get what we call prime costs. Okay, so this is it. Then all the other elements of an indirect nature will give us what we call overheads. Okay, so that means all the other elements which have an indirect nature, they are going to give us what we call overheads. So this is how we can split this. I'm going to explain it further. I'm going to rub off this and I explain it further. So I said we have what we call the direct materials and the indirect materials. We have the direct labor and the indirect labor. We have the direct expenses and the indirect expenses. But I say that direct materials plus direct labor plus direct expenses, they give us what we call prime costs. Okay? Now, indirect materials plus indirect labor plus indirect expenses, they give us what we call overheads. Okay, that's it. Now, we can also choose to go this way. Direct materials plus indirect materials, it will give us what we call the total material cost. Then, direct labor plus the indirect labor, it will give us what we call the total labor cost. Then direct expenses plus the indirect expenses, it will give us total expenses. So both of these will give us total costs. Now, it means that when we go this way, you're going to get our prime costs. Now, our prime costs plus our overheads, they're going to give us total costs. Now, if you choose to go this way, you're going to get total material cost plus total labor cost plus total expenses. It will still give you total costs. But now, this is the ideal way of the accounting way. You're supposed to go this way. Prime cost plus overheads giving us total costs. So this is the format you're supposed to follow. I will show it to you further when I'm doing the cost sheet. Now, allow me to talk about overheads. Now, overheads, remember we said that these ones, of course, carry an indirect nature in them. And these overheads, they are divided into two. One, we have what they call the factory overheads, and then we have the non-factory overheads. Okay, now the factory overheads, these ones are incurred in the factory. Okay, so they are incurred in the factory. Let me say incurred in the factory, and these ones are incurred outside the factory. Okay, so some people prefer calling these direct overheads and so indirect overheads. No, I would like my students always stick with this. So there are factory overheads and then non-factory overheads. We can have examples of factory overheads. We can have something like factory power. We can also have something like depreciation of plant. Remember, plant and machinery. Remember, this plant is the one that you are going to use in the production of goods. So if you are going to use this one in the production of goods, that means it is in the factory. Okay, so if there's a depreciation of it, then it affects the factory overheads. Then when we come to the non-factory overheads, we can have selling and distribution overheads, selling and distribution, and we can also have administrative overheads. So we can also have that. So basically, that's what we have when it comes to the overheads. Now, these overheads are divided into two. Okay, so that's how they're divided. Now, allow me to talk about something they call production cost. Now, production cost, this is the cost that has prime costs and factory overheads alone. So it is prime costs plus the factory overheads. Okay, so when it comes to the side of the overheads, for the production cost, they only take the factory overheads, the overheads that were incurred in the factory. Then we have something they call total cost. So our total cost is prime costs plus factory overheads plus the non-factory overheads. Now, factory overheads and non-factory overheads, these ones, when they're added together, they give us what? Overheads. So these ones, they give us overheads. Therefore, our total cost is equal to prime cost plus overheads, which is the one here, that prime cost plus overheads, it will give us total cost. Now, the question might come and ask you to give a difference between the production cost under total cost. So the difference is only here that in the production cost, we shall only take factory overheads and the prime cost, whereas under total cost, we shall take the prime cost and then the total overheads. So that's the difference there. In case a question comes and asks you that, that's how you should answer it. So allow me, I'm going to draw up what they call the cost sheet, and then our understanding will be enhanced. So let us look at the cost sheet. So we shall begin with what we call the direct materials. And our direct materials will be this. Okay, then you can have direct labor, we bring it here. We can have direct expenses, we bring them here. I told you that the total sum of all the direct the direct nature materials or elements, it gives us what we call prime costs. Okay, now I think this one should be easier, especially if you have understood what I've just said. Now, after us getting the prime costs, we add our factory overheads. And our factory overheads, we can have factory power, we bring it here. We can have depreciation of plant, you bring it here as well. So when you add the prime costs plus the factory overheads, what we get is the production cost, or the cost of production. The production cost. Okay. Then after us having the production cost, then we bring in the non-factory overheads. And then the non-factory overheads, you can have selling and distribution. You bring it here, and you can have the administrative overheads. You also bring them here. Then the total that we shall get will be what we call the total cost. So that will become our total cost. Now, this is what we call the cost sheet. I think you can see that it's now easier for you, especially if you have understood what I've explained previously, then this one becomes easier. Now, I told you about the production cost. So the production cost has prime costs and then the factory overheads alone. Whereas the total cost, it has all the overheads and all the prime costs. Now, before I conclude, there's something we call conversion cost. What is conversion cost now? Conversion cost, this is the cost incurred in transforming the raw materials into a finished good or product. So that means the raw materials that we have got, so how much cost has it taken us, or has been incurred for these raw materials to be transformed into a finished product. So it means we are looking at other costs except the direct materials. Except these materials, all other costs involved in making these materials a finished good. So that's what they call conversion cost. So mind about those three terms: production cost, total cost, and then conversion cost. They might ask you because they like asking those terms. So they should be at your fingertips. Conversion cost, total cost, and then the production cost. That's it. So thank you so much for watching. This is Kevin Davis Accounting. I'm done with the elements of the cost structure. We are still going together. We are still having more videos on cost management accounting, and I believe it's becoming easier. So share to your friends, subscribe to the channel, recommend friends to come and watch. Until we meet again, it's a bye for now.